Crystal stared at the holographic display floating above her desk. The blue light cast strange shadows across her scaled face as she moved her clawed fingers through the star charts. Something was wrong with the data, but she could not figure out what it was. She had been working at the Zephyrian Mapping Consortium for 3 years now. Her job was simple. She updated the official star maps that every ship in the galaxy used to travel between worlds. It was quiet work, but she liked it. Numbers did not lie. Stars did not change their positions overnight. Everything made sense in the world of stellar cartography. But today nothing made sense. Crystal pulled up another file, then another. Each time she found the same strange pattern. Every single star map from every civilization in the galaxy ended at the exact same coordinates, the border of human space. She had noticed it first while working on the Vorthon navigation charts. The Vorthons were traders who had mapped nearly half the galaxy. Their ships went everywhere, seeking new markets and new worlds to exploit. But their maps stopped dead at human space. Not gradually, not with a few scattered stars beyond the border. They just stopped. Then she checked the hegemony military charts. The hegemony controlled more territory than any other power in the galaxy. Their fleets patrolled vast regions of space, protecting trade routes and keeping the peace between smaller nations. But even their maps ended at human space. The crystalline collective maps. The same thing. The aquatic federation charts. The same thing. Every single civilization in the galaxy had agreed to end their star maps at the border of human space. No exceptions. Crystal leaned back in her chair and rubbed her tired eyes. This made no sense. Cartographers were explorers at heart. They lived to map new regions, to chart unknown stars, to push the boundaries of known space ever outward. The idea that every single mapping organization in the galaxy would voluntarily stop at the same arbitrary line was impossible. She opened her personal files and pulled up everything she knew about human space. Humans had joined galactic civilization about 400 years ago. They were a young species, barely out of their home system when first contact occurred. They controlled a modest region of space, maybe 50 star systems. Nothing special about their territory. No rare resources. No strategic importance, no ancient artifacts. So why did every map in the galaxy end at their border? Crystal started digging deeper. She accessed the historical archives, pulling up star charts from before human first contact. Her heart rate increased as she scrolled through century after century of data. The pattern went back over 3,000 years. Long before humans had even invented space travel, galactic civilizations had been ending their maps at the coordinates that would eventually become the human border. This was impossible. How could ancient civilizations have known where humans would eventually establish their territory? How could they have agreed on a border for a species that did not even exist yet in space? She was so focused on her research that she did not hear Velthak approach her workstation. "Crystal," her supervisor said, his deep voice making her jump. "What are you working on?" She turned to face him, her excitement clear in her voice. "Velthak, I found something incredible. Every star map in our database ends at human space. Every single one, going back thousands of years. Even maps made before humans reached space. This has to be the biggest discovery in cartographic history." Velthak's expression changed. The friendly warmth in his eyes disappeared, replaced by something that looked almost like fear. "Show me," he said quietly. Crystal eagerly brought up her data on the main display. Chart after chart, civilization after civilization, all showing the same impossible pattern. She talked quickly, pointing out the statistical impossibility of such perfect alignment across so many different cultures and time periods. As she spoke, Velthak grew more and more silent. When she finished her presentation, he stared at the display for a long time without saying anything. "This is very interesting work, Crystal," he finally said, "but I am reassigning you to the Planetary Survey Division, effective immediately." What? She could not believe what she was hearing. "But Velthak, this is the discovery of a lifetime. We need to investigate this further. We need to find out why every civilization in the galaxy has agreed to this boundary." The decision is final, Velthak said firmly. Report to division. Chief Mordak tomorrow morning. He will assign you to catalog the mineral surveys of the Kepler mining systems. Krixtal watched in shock as Velthak walked away. Mineral surveys were the most boring job in the entire consortium. They were punishment duty, given to cartographers who had made serious mistakes or caused problems for the organization. But she had not made any mistakes. She had made a discovery. That night, Krixtal could not sleep. She kept thinking about the star maps, about the impossible pattern she had found. Why would Velthak want to bury her research? Why reassign her to mineral surveys instead of investigating further? She decided to do some unofficial research on her own time. Using her personal access codes, she logged into the consortium databases from her home terminal. She started looking for any mention of human space boundaries in the historical records. Most of the files were routine bureaucratic documents. Trade agreements, territorial disputes, mapping contracts, nothing useful. But then she found something strange in the ancient archives. It was a fragment of a document so old that parts of it had become corrupted and unreadable. But what she could read made her blood run cold. The preservation protocol remains in effect. No mapping vessels shall approach the designated sectors. Violation of these restrictions will result in immediate termination of galactic citizenship revoked. The boundary must be maintained at all costs. The document was signed by representatives of 17 different galactic civilizations. It was dated over 2,000 years ago. Krixtal felt her hands shaking as she read the fragment again. The preservation protocol. What was being preserved? And why did it require ending all star maps at human space? She spent the next several hours searching for any other mention of the preservation protocol, but found nothing. Either the other documents had been destroyed, or they were classified at levels far above her security clearance. As the night wore on, Krixtal began to feel like she was being watched. She told herself it was just paranoia, but she could not shake the feeling that someone was monitoring her research. She closed her files and went to bed, but sleep would not come. The next morning, she reported to Division Chief Mordak as ordered. He was a gruff, unfriendly Zephyrian who clearly resented having to deal with what he saw as a troublemaker. You will be cataloging mineral surveys of asteroid fields in the Kepler 438 system, he told her without looking up from his desk. The work is routine. Do not make it complicated. Krixtal wanted to argue, to demand an explanation for her reassignment, but something in Mordak's tone warned her to stay quiet. She took the assignment files and went to her new workstation in the basement of the building. The work was as boring as she had expected. Hours of cataloging rock samples and ore deposits. But it gave her time to think about what she had discovered. The more she thought about it, the more convinced she became that there was a massive conspiracy involving every major civilization in the galaxy. During her lunch break, she decided to take a walk outside the consortium building. The fresh air helped clear her head, but as she walked, she noticed the same hegemony security officer following her. When she turned corners, he turned corners. When she stopped to look in shop windows, he stopped to examine street signs. Someone was definitely watching her. That evening, as she prepared to leave work, Krixtal made a decision. She was going to find out the truth about the preservation protocol and the human space boundary, no matter what it cost her. She had no idea that her decision would soon put her in the middle of the galaxy's greatest secret, or that the truth she sought would change everything she thought she knew about humans and their place in the universe. As she walked home through the busy streets of the consortium district, Krixtal did not notice the encrypted communication being sent from a concealed transmitter in the building behind her. Subject has discovered the boundary anomaly. Recommend immediate Protocol 7 implementation. The human border protocols remain in effect. No mapping vessels are to approach Sector 7 Alpha under any circumstances. Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison adjusted his grip on the command chair as the survey vessel Meridian dropped out of hyperspace. The stars shifted back into their normal positions, and the familiar hum of the ship's engines settled into a steady rhythm. Arrival at Kepler 442 system confirmed, announced Navigator Lisa Chen from her station. All systems showing green across the board. Jake nodded and looked around the bridge at his small crew. Lisa had been with him for 2 years now, and he trusted her completely with navigation duties. Engineer Pete Rodriguez was probably the best mechanic in the Colonial Survey Corps, capable of fixing anything that could break on a starship. Communications Officer Amy Stone was new to the team, but she had already proven herself during their last 3 missions. "All right, people, you know the drill," Jake said. "Standard sweep of the outer planets, check for any unusual readings, and file our reports with Colonial Command. Should be a quiet run." The Kepler 442 system was located near the edge of human space. It contained 6 planets, none of them suitable for human life, but the Colonial Administration wanted regular surveys of all border systems. Jake had run dozens of these routine missions over the past 5 years. They were usually boring, but the pay was steady, and the work was important. "Jake, I'm picking up something on long-range sensors," Lisa called out. "Looks like a ship, but it's not responding to our hails." "Put it on the main screen," Jake ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing a damaged vessel drifting between the 4th and 5th planets. It was clearly not human in design. The hull was smooth and curved, with an organic appearance that reminded Jake of seashells. Several sections showed blast damage, and the ship was venting atmosphere from multiple breaches. "That's a Zephyrian scout vessel," Amy said, checking her identification database. "But what's it doing way out here? This is human space." Jake frowned. Zephyrian ships rarely ventured into human territory. The reptilian aliens were friendly enough, but they tended to keep to their own trade routes and systems. "Any life signs, Pete?" Pete ran his sensors over the damaged ship. "I'm reading one life form, very weak. Looks like the ship's life support is failing." "Prep the shuttle bay," Jake ordered. "We're going to bring them aboard." It took an hour to carefully dock with the Zephyrian vessel and transfer its sole occupant to the Meridian's medical bay. The alien was unconscious and badly injured, but Pete's medical scanners indicated she would survive with proper treatment. Jake sat by her bedside as she slowly regained consciousness. Her scaled skin was pale, and her large eyes took several moments to focus on his face. "Easy there," Jake said gently. "You're safe now? I'm Commander Morrison of the human vessel Meridian. What's your name?" The Zephyrian tried to speak, but only managed a weak croak. Jake helped her sip some water before she tried again. "Crixtel," she whispered. "My name is Crixtel. I was a cartographer with the Zephyrian Mapping Consortium. What happened to your ship? How did you end up in human space?" Crixtel closed her eyes for a moment, as if gathering her strength. "I was running. They were trying to stop me from investigating something important." Jake leaned forward. "What were you investigating?" "The maps," Crixtel said, her voice growing stronger. "Every star map in the galaxy ends at human space. Every single one going back thousands of years. Even maps made before humans reached space." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "That's impossible." "That's what I thought too," Crixtel said. "But I have the data. I can prove it. Every civilization in the galaxy has agreed to end their star maps at your border. No exceptions." Jake called his crew to the medical bay and had Crixtel repeat her story. As she talked, he watched the expressions on his team's faces change from skepticism to concern to outright alarm. "Show us the data," Amy said. Crixtel had managed to download her research files onto a portable storage device before fleeing the consortium. Amy connected it to the Meridian's computer system and began pulling up the star charts. Chart after chart appeared on the screen. Forthon trade routes, hegemony military maps, crystalline collective exploration data. Every single one ended at the border of human space. "This is incredible," Lisa whispered. "How is this possible?" "More importantly," Pete added, "why would they do this?" Jake studied the data for a long time without speaking. Finally, he turned to Amy. "Pull up our mission files for the past year. I want to see something." Amy brought up the Colonial Survey Corps mission database. Jake scrolled through months of assignments looking for a pattern he hoped he would not find, but there it was. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the screen. Every time we've been assigned to survey systems near the galactic border regions, we get reassigned at the last minute. Emergency missions, priority tasks, equipment failures that require us to return to base. Amy checked her communication logs. Jake, you're right. In the past year alone, we've been redirected away from deep space exploration 17 times. Colonial Command has been keeping us away from certain areas, Lisa realized. Just like the alien civilizations keep their ships away from human space. Jake felt a growing sense of unease. Amy, go through all our communication records. Look for any mention of restricted sectors or classified exploration zones. Amy's fingers flew over her console as she searched through years of stored communications. After 20 minutes, she found what they were looking for. Here, she said, highlighting a message from 6 months ago. It's buried in a routine supply requisition, but look at the routing codes. The message had been sent through multiple encrypted channels before reaching the Meridian. The original sender was listed as Colonial Deep Space Division, Classification, Level 7. I've never heard of Colonial Deep Space Division, Jake said. Pete checked the official organizational charts. Pete accessed the Colonial Administration database but found no record of any Deep Space Division. According to the official records, no such organization existed. This is getting stranger by the minute, Pete muttered. Amy continued searching through the communication logs. Jake, I found something else. Look at this transmission from last year. She brought up another encrypted message, this one with even higher security protocols. The text was mostly classified, but one line was clearly readable. Boundary protocols remain in effect. No survey vessels are to approach Sector 7 Alpha under any circumstances. Sector 7 Alpha, Jake repeated. Amy, where is that? Amy ran the coordinates through the navigation computer. It's about 12 light years from here, right at the edge of mapped human space. Jake looked at his crew, then at Crixtall, who had been listening to everything with growing excitement. Commander Morrison, Crixtall said, I think your people know the same secret that my people know, and I think both of our governments have been working very hard to keep us from finding out what it is. Jake stood up and walked to the viewport, staring out at the stars. For 5 years he had been a loyal officer in the Colonial Survey Corps. He had followed orders, filed reports, and never questioned the missions he was given or the places he was told not to go. But now he was beginning to understand that his entire career had been carefully managed to keep him away from something important enough that every civilization in the galaxy had agreed to hide it. Jake, Lisa said quietly, what are we going to do? Jake turned back to his crew. These were good people, loyal officers who had trusted him to lead them on routine survey missions. Now he was asking them to make a choice that could end their careers or worse. We're going to Sector 7 Alpha, he said finally. We're going to find out what's so important that the entire galaxy has conspired to hide it. Amy looked worried. What about our orders? What about Colonial Command? Our orders are to survey and explore, Jake replied. That's exactly what we're going to do. Pete grinned. I've always wanted to see what's beyond the edge of the maps. Lisa nodded. If we're doing this, we better do it right. We'll need to modify our communication systems to avoid detection and plot a course that keeps us away from the normal patrol routes. Jake felt a mixture of excitement and fear as he looked at his crew. They were about to cross a line that could not be uncrossed. They were about to venture into space that had been forbidden to both humans and aliens for thousands of years. Crixtall, he said, turning to the Zephyrian cartographer, are you willing to come with us? We could use your expertise. Crixtall's eyes blazed with determination. Commander Morrison, I have been searching for the truth about the galactic maps for months. I would not miss this opportunity for anything. Jake nodded. Then it's settled. Amy, send a message to Colonial Command, reporting that we're extending our survey mission due to equipment calibration issues. That should buy us a few days. As the Meridian changed course toward Sector 7 Alpha, Jake could not shake the feeling that they were about to discover something that would change everything they thought they knew about humanity's place in the galaxy. Behind them, hidden monitoring stations began transmitting urgent messages to their handlers. The boundary had been breached, and the protocols that had kept the galaxy's greatest secret hidden for millennia were about to be tested. The Meridian had been traveling towards Sector 7 Alpha for 3 days when they encountered their first warning beacon. Jake stood on the bridge, watching the strange device on the main screen. It was about the size of a shuttle, floating alone in the darkness between star systems. "I'm receiving a transmission," Amy announced from her communication station. "It's broadcasting on all frequencies." "Put it through the speakers," Jake ordered. A mechanical voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect galactic standard. "Warning. You are approaching a restricted zone by order of the Galactic Preservation Council. Turn back immediately. This area is off limits to all vessels. Warning. You are approaching a restricted zone." The message repeated in dozens of different languages. Jake recognized Zephyrian, Vorthan, and several others. But what caught his attention was that the voice also spoke in perfect English. "How long has that beacon been broadcasting?" Lisa asked. Pete ran a detailed scan of the device. "Based on the technology and wear patterns, I'd say it's been out here for at least 2,000 years. 2,000 years. Jake repeated slowly. "That's long before humans had space travel." Krikstal moved closer to the screen, studying the beacon carefully. "Commander, look at the design of that device. The hull construction, the power systems, the communication arrays." Jake looked more closely. The beacon had a sleek, functional design that looked familiar, but he could not place where he had seen it before. "That's human technology," Krikstal said quietly. "I've studied enough human ship designs to recognize the construction patterns. But you said humans only reached space 400 years ago." Jake felt his stomach tighten. "Amy, record everything. About this beacon, I want detailed scans of every component." They spent 2 hours studying the warning beacon before continuing their journey. Jake tried to make sense of what they had found, but every explanation he could think of seemed impossible. 2 days later, they found another beacon, then another. Each one was identical, broadcasting the same warnings in the same languages. All of them appeared to be thousands of years old, and all of them were clearly built with human technology. "I count 47 beacons so far," Lisa reported as they approached the coordinates for Sector 7 Alpha. "They form a perfect sphere around this region of space." "A quarantine boundary," Pete observed. "Someone really doesn't want anyone getting close to whatever's in there." Jake was about to respond when Amy's console erupted in alarms. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV. Big ship coming in fast." "On screen," Jake ordered. The view screen showed a massive vessel dropping out of hyperspace directly in their path. It was easily 10 times the size of the Meridian, with a design unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The hull was dark and angular, covered with sensor arrays and weapon emplacements. "They're hailing us," Amy reported. "Open a channel." The screen flickered and showed the bridge of the alien vessel. But the person who appeared was not alien at all. He was human, wearing a uniform that Jake did not recognize. "This is Commander Alex Turner of the Boundary Fleet Vessel Sentinel," the man said. "You are in violation of restricted space. Shut down your engines and prepare to be boarded." Jake felt his world spinning. "Boundary Fleet? I've never heard of any Boundary Fleet." "That's because you weren't supposed to," Turner replied. "Now shut down your engines, Commander Morrison. We have a lot to discuss." Jake looked at his crew. They were all staring at the screen in shock. Another human organization, with ships, and technology that officially did not exist. "Do it," Jake told Lisa. "Shut down the engines." 20 minutes later, Commander Turner materialized on the Meridian's bridge in a column of blue light. Jake had never seen a personal teleporter that advanced. Colonial technology was decades behind whatever Turner was using. Turner was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes. His uniform was black with silver insignia that Jake did not recognize. He looked around the bridge, taking in Jake's crew and pausing when he saw Krikstal. "A Zephyrian cartographer," Turner said. "I suppose that explains how you found the boundary beacons." "Commander Turner," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady, "I need some answers. What is the Boundary Fleet? Why are there human warning beacons that are thousands of years old? And what exactly are we not supposed to find in Sector 7 Alpha?" Turner was quiet for a long moment. Then he sighed and sat down in one of the empty chairs. Commander Morrison, what I'm about to tell you is classified at levels you didn't know existed. Your mission ends here. Your crew will be debriefed and returned to colonial space with modified memories. The Zephyrian will be returned to her people with a cover story about equipment failure. Wait just a minute, Jake said angrily. You can't just make us disappear because we asked the wrong questions. Actually, I can, Turner replied. I have the authority to do whatever is necessary to protect the boundary protocols. Crixtal stepped forward. Commander Turner, I spent months investigating the galactic mapping conspiracy. Every civilization in the galaxy has agreed to end their star maps at human space. This goes back thousands of years, long before humans should have existed in space. What is everyone trying to hide? Turner looked at her for a long time. Jake could see him weighing his options, deciding how much to reveal. The truth is complicated, Turner finally said, and dangerous. There are things about human history that both humans and aliens have agreed are better left buried. Try us, Jake said. Turner stood up and walked to the viewport, staring out at the stars. Tell me, Commander Morrison, what do you know about human space exploration history? The basics. We achieved faster than light travel about 400 years ago, made first contact with the Zephyrians 50 years later, joined galactic civilization, established trade relationships, colonized about 50 star systems. That's what the history books say, Turner agreed. But it's not the whole truth. He turned back to face them. Humans have been a spacefaring civilization for over 10,000 years. The bridge fell silent. Jake felt like he had been punched in the stomach. That's impossible, Lisa whispered. No, Turner said. It's just classified. Humanity was part of galactic civilization long before the official first contact. We had colonies across hundreds of star systems. We were explorers, traders, diplomats. What happened? Amy asked. Turner's expression grew dark. We became something else. Something that the galaxy still has nightmares about. He activated a holographic projector on his wrist, filling the air above them with star charts and historical records. Jake saw images of human colonies, human ships, human space stations scattered across the galaxy. For thousands of years, humans lived alongside hundreds of other spacefaring species, Turner continued. But then something happened that changed everything. A plague began spreading through galactic civilization. Not a disease that killed bodies, but one that destroyed minds. The holographic display showed worlds going dark, entire star systems falling silent. The Void Plague, Turner said. It spread through quantum communication networks, infecting every species it touched. Entire civilizations would simply stop responding to outside contact. When investigation teams were sent to infected worlds, they found the populations alive, but empty. No consciousness, no intelligence, just biological machines going through the motions of life. Jake stared at the horrifying images. How do you stop something like that? You don't, Turner replied, unless you're immune to it. And humans, for reasons we still don't fully understand, were the only species that couldn't be infected. The implications hit Jake like a sledgehammer. You mean? Yes, Turner said quietly. Humanity became the galaxy's executioner. When worlds were infected with the Void Plague, human fleets would arrive and sterilize them completely. Billions of lives ended by human weapons, but it was the only way to prevent the plague from spreading further. Crixtal made a soft sound of horror. The preservation protocol. You weren't just mapping restrictions. You were quarantine boundaries. Turner nodded. When the plague was finally contained, the surviving galactic civilizations were faced with a terrible problem. Humans had saved them, but they had also seen what humans were capable of when necessity demanded it. The decision was made to segregate humanity from the rest of the galaxy. A voluntary exile, Jake realized. Yes. Humans would be given a designated region of space and left alone. In return, the galaxy would never speak of the Void Plague or humanity's role in ending it. The star maps would end at human space as a reminder of the boundary that must never be crossed. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all staring at Turner in shock and disbelief. But some humans stayed behind, Turner continued. Small groups who volunteered to monitor the galaxy for signs of the plague's return. We became the Boundary Fleet, the guardians of humanity's greatest secret. Why tell us this now? Jake asked. Turner's expression grew grim. Because the secret may not matter much longer. Our deep space sensors have detected quantum signatures consistent with the early stages of void plague emergence. It's happening. Again, Commander Morrison. And once again, humanity may be the only species capable of stopping it. Commander Turner's ship transported Jake and his crew to a hidden space station deep within Sector 7 Alpha. The station was massive, easily the size of a small city, but it did not appear on any star charts Jake had ever seen. As their shuttle approached the docking bay, he could see dozens of ships moving around the structure. All of them were human designs, but unlike anything in the colonial fleet. Welcome to Station Omega, Turner said as they walked through the airlock. This has been our home for the past 3,000 years. The corridors of the station were filled with people, humans of all ages, wearing the same black uniforms as Turner. Jake noticed that many of them stopped to stare as his group passed. Word was already spreading that outsiders had breached the boundary. How many people live here? Lisa asked. About 50,000, Turner replied. We have other stations throughout the boundary zone, but this is our primary base of operations. They took a lift to the command level, passing through multiple security checkpoints. Jake noticed that the guards carried weapons he had never seen before, and the security scanners used technology far beyond anything Colonial had developed. The lift stopped at a large office with windows that looked out over the station's main docking bay. Behind a desk sat a woman with silver hair and sharp blue eyes. She wore the same black uniform as Turner, but with more insignia on her shoulders. Admiral Susan Blake, Turner announced. I present Commander Jake Morrison and his crew from the Colonial Survey Corps, along with the Zephyrian cartographer Krikstal. Admiral Blake studied each of them carefully before speaking. Commander Morrison, you have stumbled onto the most closely guarded secret in galactic history. I trust Commander Turner has explained the basic situation to you. He told us about the Void Plague, Jake said, and about humanity's role in stopping it thousands of years ago. But I still don't understand why this had to be kept secret from modern humans. Admiral Blake stood and walked to the windows. Tell me, Commander, what do you think would happen if the truth became public knowledge? If every human in colonial space learned that their ancestors had sterilized entire worlds to stop a plague? Jake thought about it. There would be panic. Some people would be horrified by what we had done. Others might be proud of it. Exactly, Blake said. And what do you think would happen if every alien civilization learned that humans were immune to a plague that could destroy their minds, that we had the power to decide which worlds lived and which worlds died? Krikstal spoke up. They would be terrified of us. Some would want to destroy humanity before the plague returned. Others would try to use us as weapons against their enemies. Very good, Blake said. The secret has kept the peace for 3 millennia. Humans live in their designated space, believing they are a young civilization just starting to explore the galaxy. The other species maintain trade and diplomatic relations with humanity, while carefully avoiding any mention of the true history. Amy looked confused. But if the plague is returning, won't the secret come out anyway? Blake nodded grimly. That's exactly the problem we're facing. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected quantum disruption patterns in the Andromeda spiral. The same patterns that appeared right before the last plague outbreak. She activated a holographic display showing a map of nearby galaxies. Red warning symbols marked several locations in the Andromeda spiral. 3 worlds have already gone silent, Blake continued. Investigation drones sent to those systems found the same thing we found thousands of years ago. Cities full of people, going through the motions of life but with no consciousness behind their actions. Pete stared at the display in horror. How long before it spreads to our galaxy? Based on our projections, the plague will reach the outer rim of our galaxy within 6 months, Blake said. Once it enters our space, it will spread through the quantum communication networks just like before. Entire civilizations will fall within weeks. Jake felt a cold weight settling in his stomach. And humans are still the only species immune to it? As far as we know, yes, Blake replied. We've spent 3,000 years studying the plague, trying to find a cure or a vaccine. But the void plague attacks consciousness itself, not biological systems. It spreads through quantum entanglement in ways we still don't fully understand. Turner stepped forward. Admiral, we need to make a decision about the Morrison team. Do we proceed with standard protocol, or do we consider other options? Blake looked at Jake and his crew for a long moment. What do you think we should do, Commander Morrison? Should we wipe your memories and send you back to colonial space? Should we keep you here as prisoners? Or should we trust you with the full truth? Jake thought about everything he had learned, the weight of the secret, the implications for both humanity and the galaxy, the approaching threat that could destroy billions of lives. I think, he said slowly, that the time for secrets is over. If the plague is returning, people need to know what's coming. They need to understand what role humanity might have to play. Blake smiled for the first time since they had arrived. That's exactly what I was hoping you would say. She walked back to her desk and pulled up another display. This one showed the current military strength of human colonial forces. Commander Morrison, what you see here represents the official human military. About 200 ships, mostly designed for exploration and light patrol duties. The colonial administration has deliberately kept humanity demilitarized, following the agreement made after the last plague outbreak. The display changed, showing a much larger fleet of ships. This represents the Boundary Fleet, over 3,000 vessels built using technology developed during our isolation. We've been preparing for this day for 3 millennia. Jake stared at the numbers in amazement. 3,000 ships? How did you build such a fleet without anyone noticing? Very carefully, Turner said. We have mining operations in dead systems, manufacturing facilities in deep space, recruitment from colonists who show the right psychological profiles. Everything hidden, everything classified. Crixtal moved closer to the display. Commander Blake, if your fleet is this large, why keep it secret? Keep it. Why not reveal yourselves and prepare the galaxy for the plague's return? Blake's expression grew sad. Because we learned something during the last outbreak that we've never shared with anyone. The void plague doesn't just destroy consciousness, randomly. It targets specific types of minds first. She brought up another display showing brain scan patterns and psychological profiles. The plague spreads fastest among individuals with high intelligence, strong creativity, and complex emotional structures. Scientists, artists, leaders, innovators, the people who drive civilization forward are the first to fall. Amy gasped. It attacks the best minds first. Exactly, Blake said. Which means that when the plague hits, the survivors will be those least capable of fighting back or rebuilding. Entire civilizations collapse not just because people lose consciousness, but because all the smart, creative people are infected first. Jake began to understand the full horror of what they were facing. So even if you can stop the plague, the damage to galactic civilization could be catastrophic. Unless, Blake said, we can find a way to prevent the infection from spreading in the first place, or unless we can develop treatments that work quickly enough to save the infected populations. She turned back to face them. That's why your arrival here might be more than just coincidence, Commander Morrison. We need fresh perspectives. People who haven't spent 3,000 years thinking about this problem the same way. Turner nodded. Admiral Blake has been considering a new approach. Instead of preparing to repeat the sterilization protocols, we want to try saving the infected worlds. How? Lisa asked. Blake smiled grimly. By doing something we've never tried before. We're going to reveal the truth to both humanity and the galaxy. We're going to tell them about the plague, about our immunity, and about what's coming. And then we're going to ask for their help in finding a better solution. Jake felt his heart racing. You want to end the secrecy? The secrecy was meant to protect the peace, Blake replied. But peace won't matter if everyone's dead or mindless. It's time for humanity to step out of the shadows and take our place as the galaxy's immune system. But this time, we're going to do it as healers, not executioners. She walked back to the windows and looked out at the busy docking bay below. The question is, Commander Morrison, are you and your crew willing to help us? Because what we're planning will change everything. There will be no going back to the way things were. Jake looked at his crew, seeing determination in their faces despite the fear in their eyes. Then he looked at Crickstall, who had started this whole journey by asking the right questions. Admiral Blake's plan was ambitious and dangerous. Over the next week, Jake and his crew worked with the Boundary Fleet to prepare for the most important broadcast in galactic history. The plan was to simultaneously transmit the truth to every inhabited world in the galaxy, revealing both the approaching plague and humanity's hidden role as protectors. Jake stood in the station's main communication center, watching dozens of technicians prepare the transmission equipment. The room hummed with activity as engineers tested quantum relay systems that could reach every corner of known space. "Are you sure about this?" Lisa asked, joining him at the observation window. "Once we send this message, everything changes. There's no taking it back." Jake nodded. "I've been thinking about that all week, but Admiral Blake is right. The secrecy was meant to protect peace, but what kind of peace is it if it's built on lies?" Crickstall approached them, carrying a data pad with the final transmission script. "I've been working with your communication specialists to make sure the message will be understood by every major species in the galaxy. We've included historical data, scientific proof, and most importantly, a call for cooperation." "How do you think your people will react?" Amy asked her. Crickstall was quiet for a moment. "There will be fear at first. Many will remember the old stories about humans, the legends that were passed down through generations. But I think most will understand that cooperation is our only chance for survival." Commander Turner entered the communication center and walked over to their group. "Admiral Blake wants to see you in the briefing room. It's time for the final decision." They followed Turner to a large room filled with screens showing the current status of every major civilization in the galaxy. Trade routes, military positions, communication networks, and population centers were all displayed in real time. Admiral Blake stood in the center of it all, looking like a general preparing for the most important battle of her life. "In 30 minutes, we will either make history or start a war," she said as they entered. "I want each of you to understand what you're agreeing to be part of." She gestured to the screens around them. "When we send this transmission, every government in the galaxy will learn that humans have been lying to them for 3,000 years. Some will be grateful for the protection we provided. Others will see it as a betrayal of trust." Pete stepped forward. "What's the worst-case scenario?" "Civil war," Blake replied without hesitation. "Some species might try to attack human space before the plague arrives. Others might demand access to our immunity research. A few might even try to ally with the plague, thinking they can control it." "And the best-case scenario?" Jake asked. Blake smiled. "Every civilization in the galaxy works together to find a cure. We share our technology, our knowledge, our resources. Instead of sterilizing infected worlds, we save them. Instead of being the galaxy's executioners, we become its healers." Turner activated a new display showing the latest reports from their deep space monitoring stations. "Admiral, we've just received confirmation that 2 more worlds in the Andromeda Spiral have gone silent. The plague is spreading faster than our projections indicated." Blake's expression grew grim. "How long do we have?" 4 months, maybe less, before it reaches our galaxy." Jake felt the weight of the decision settling on all of them. "Admiral, what exactly do you need from us?" Blake turned to face him. "Commander Morrison, your crew discovered the secret by asking the right questions. Crickstall proved that the truth could bring species together instead of driving them apart. We want you to be the ones who deliver the message." "Us?" Amy looked shocked. "Why not you, or Commander Turner, or someone with more authority?" "Because you represent hope," Blake explained. "Jake, you're a colonial officer who discovered the truth and chose to pursue it despite the risks. Your crew followed you into unknown space because they believed in doing the right thing. and Crixtal represents the possibility that aliens and humans can work together as equals. Crixtal stepped forward. Admiral Blake, I accept the responsibility. My people need to know the truth, and they need to hear it from someone they trust. Jake looked at his crew. Lisa nodded firmly. Pete gave him a thumbs up. Amy took a deep breath and said, "Let's do this." "Then it's decided," Blake said. "We broadcast in 15 minutes. The next quarter hour passed in a blur of final preparations. Jake and Crixtal reviewed their speeches one last time while Amy and the communication technicians tested the transmission systems. Lisa and Pete worked with Turner to coordinate the release of supporting evidence and historical documents. Finally, Blake gave the signal. Every screen in the communication center showed the same image. Jake standing next to Crixtal in front of a backdrop showing both human and alien symbols. "People of the galaxy," Jake began, his voice being transmitted to billions of beings across hundreds of worlds. "My name is Commander Jake Morrison of the Human Colonial Survey Corps. What I am about to tell you will change everything you thought you knew about humanity and our place in galactic civilization." He paused, knowing that these next words would end 3 millennia of carefully maintained secrecy. Humans have been part of galactic civilization for over 10,000 years. We were not a young species when we made first contact 4 centuries ago. We were refugees, voluntarily exiled from the galaxy after serving as its protectors during a crisis that nearly destroyed all intelligent life. Across the galaxy, communication centers fell silent as the shocking revelations sank in. Crixtal stepped forward to speak. "I am Crixtal of the Zephyrian Mapping Consortium. For months I investigated why every star map in the galaxy ended at human space. What I discovered was evidence of the greatest conspiracy in galactic history, but also proof of humanity's greatest sacrifice." She activated a holographic display showing the historical evidence they had compiled. Ancient documents, star charts, archaeological findings, all proving that humans had been spacefaring for millennia. 3,000 years ago, Crixtal continued, a plague swept through our galaxy. The Void Plague destroyed consciousness itself, leaving entire worlds full of living but mindless beings. Every species fell victim to this plague except one. Humans were immune. Jake took over the narrative. Our ancestors became the galaxy's immune system. When worlds were infected, human fleets would arrive to prevent the plague's spread. Billions died, but the galaxy was saved. When the crisis ended, the surviving civilizations asked humanity to voluntarily exile ourselves to prevent fear and mistrust from destroying the peace we had all fought to preserve. The display changed to show current deep space monitoring data. "The Void Plague is returning," Jake announced. "Our monitoring stations have detected its presence in the Andromeda Spiral. Within months, it will reach our galaxy. Once again, every intelligent species faces extinction." Crixtal stepped forward again. "But this time we have a choice. We can repeat the old solution and sterilize infected worlds, or we can work together to find a better way. Humans still possess immunity to the plague, but 3,000 years of research has given us new tools and new hope." Jake looked directly into the camera. "We are calling for the greatest cooperative effort in galactic history. Every species, every world, every brilliant mind working together to find a cure for the Void Plague. We invite you to join us not as subjects or enemies, but as partners in the fight for our collective survival." The transmission continued for another hour, as Jake and Crixtal presented their evidence and answered the most pressing questions. They explained the boundary fleet, the hidden monitoring stations, and the preparations that had been made for this day. When the broadcast ended, the communication center fell silent. Everyone waited to see how the galaxy would respond. The first responses came within minutes. The Zephyrian High Council announced their support for the cooperative effort. The Vorthon Trade Federation offered their resources for research and development. The Crystalline Collective pledged their computational power to help analyze plague patterns, but not every response was positive. The Hegemony Military Command demanded immediate access to human immunity research. 3 smaller species, announced they were severing all ties with humanity. The Aquatic Federation declared a state of emergency and began mobilizing their fleets. Admiral Blake watched the responses flow in with mixed emotions. "It's better than I feared, but not as good as I hoped," she told Jake. "What happens now?" Lisa asked. Blake smiled. "Now we find out if the galaxy is ready to face its greatest challenge together, or if we'll have to fight both the plague and each other." Jake looked out at the stars through the station's windows. Somewhere out there in the darkness, an ancient enemy was spreading toward their galaxy. But for the first time in 3,000 years, humanity would not face it alone. The age of secrets was over. The age of cooperation had begun.